Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Hope you're doing well. I realize that I didn't prep the show properly. At least I have the microphone on today, but I'm scrambling a little bit to get a couple of things posted here in the back end of things. Excuse me. So I'll be a little bit confused here for the first minute of the show. But you're in the right spot. This is FantasyGuru.com's Fantasy Sports Daily. We're here Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We have a lot of fun here on the show. Tell a friend, pass the word, all that kind of good stuff. You can always get more details, more stuff, more interaction with our staff and the great work that we do over at FantasyGuru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Get signed up for any and all of the products that we have. I'm Ray Flowers. I'm here with you Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Justin Fensterman's here with you on Wednesdays. That's because on Wednesdays, I'm with Jeff Mans on the Elite Sports Show. That show right now is on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio from 3 to 6. So you watch this show from 12 to 1. You watch that show from 3 to 6. Again, I'm here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesdays, I'm with Jeff while Justin is with you all here. What are we talking about today? Well, let's throw it up on the screen. Here's kind of the plan. We're going to talk a little best ball. We got best ball over at FantasyGuru.com, so let's talk about it. That's right. Let's check it out. We'll give a little bit of a breakdown there. We had some signings. Tommy Pham, Randal Grichuk, Ramon, Laureano, Harrison Bader, but the big one, obviously, Pete Alonso, so we'll break that down. We've been talking about it on and on and on. What's going on with Alex Bregman? What's going on with Nolan and Arenado? Is this ever going to change? Are things actually ever going to get to the point where, maybe? We'll find out. And then I want to talk about Jacob deGrom. I always have a lot to say about Jacob deGrom. And frankly, I've been right for, about 3-4 years now on Jacob deGrom. We'll see if I'm going to be right again. And why I think a lot of you all out there, maybe not you all, but a lot of people out there playing fantasy baseball, they got some explaining to do. As they used to say, I think it was on I Love Lucy, right? Is that right? I Love Lucy? All right. And then we'll talk some football in about 25 or so minutes. Tyler Buecher, it's a Thursday, so Tyler always joins us. Today is our Super Bowl day. I know that you've had Super Bowl talk everywhere. Didn't want to bludgeon you all with more Super Bowl talk here with me this week. Jeff Mans is doing that every day on his show on Elite Sports on SiriusXM. We'll have talks either about 25, 30 minutes. We'll break down this game between the Eagles and the Chiefs. The pluses, the minuses, the goods, the bad. How does each team win? What's the game flow likely look like? Tyler will share a bet with y'all. Maybe we'll get some time to talk about some wide receivers too. But basically a breakdown of the Super Bowl with Tyler Buecher of FantasyGuru.com. Okay, before you get to anything else, remember you can always type in Fantasy Sports Daily to your podcast network. Find us there. You can watch us live on YouTube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. Watch us live on Facebook at Facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. Live on Twitter X @FantasyGuruSite. All three of those spots, if you're watching live, you can leave comments that we'll address throughout the show. Questions we'll address throughout the show. Or you can just talk to each other, which I know a lot of you do on occasion. So appreciate you all there as well. Angelo, Tony, thank you both for being here and for always being involved and saying hi. And no, Tony, as they say, you demand. You demand. All right, let's get into it here. Let's talk a little bit of baseball before we talk some football. And we do have a lot of things over at FantasyGuru.com. And remember, if you can, FantasyGuru.com/2005-MLB-draft-guide. You can also find that on the homepage of FantasyGuru.com. Scroll down a little bit, find that blue section. That's the homepage for the baseball product at FG. If you buy the fantasy baseball product, which is obviously available and growing on a daily basis, you get it for the entirety of the season. It's not just the preseason, it's the entire season through the end of the regular season. So you'll get all that coverage if you sign up now or at any point on the calendar. We're not guaranteeing, but wink, wink, we're guaranteeing an article every day. We've been doing that over at FG, so I think that's continuing. That's going to continue to be the plan. Today, by the way, is building the perfect hitter. We did the matrix of leadership for hitters and pitchers. Today is building the perfect hitter. Tomorrow's building the perfect pitcher. So you want to check that out over at the site. But also note when you go to that homepage, you'll see rankings and rankings and rankings and rankings. We have hitter rankings, pitcher rankings, auction values, AL only rankings, NL only rankings, points league rankings, dynasty league rankings, on base percentage rankings, solds rankings, power grades, speed grades, dependability grades. Like, there's a lot. And one of the things we have there, and we haven't talked about on the show much, and wanted to toss it out there for y'all, is best ball. I know we do a ton of best ball and football. We had Tyler Buecher on last week, a week ago, yet today, talking about doing best ball. And he said last week that next week he'll have underdog best ball rankings up for football. So we always do. People are drafting football before the season's even over. They're drafting best ball for the coming year, right? Best ball baseball is not as popular as in football. Of course, fantasy baseball is not as popular as fantasy football. But doesn't mean we're not there for you if you want to play best ball. And frankly, I completely understand the desire to play best ball. One of the biggest complaints people have, obviously, in fantasy baseball is that it's too long. Now, we've talked about this before. It's too long in terms of games. It's twice as many games as basketball, or 10 times as many games as football. But the calendar is pretty much the same. There's not a hell of a lot of difference on the calendar. People just look at it differently because of the volume of games. But that's the perception. And then people draft teams and guys get hurt and they're tired of the waiver wire and all that. Okay. So obviously in a best ball scenario, you draft a team and that's it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to run waivers. You don't have to do that. So there's no daily moves. You don't have to worry about adding players, streaming players, and that. You just pick a team. There you go, right? So that's very attractive. Everyone loves to draft. Best ball drafts are not expensive relative to, it's $10. I think Tyler was talking last week, the football ones are like $3 and $10. They're not expensive. Some people use them as ways to familiarize themselves with the player pool and for, their home league draft or whatever. I don't know if that's the right way to do it. Some people do it that way. But the bottom line is, however you do it, however you want to get involved, we want to help address those of you that play. So over at fantasyguru.com, we've got a series of underdog rankings provided by MLB model Rob Brink, our CEO. So if you go to the top of the page, you go to the seasonal tab, and you scroll down to rankings, you'll see underdog MLB best ball rankings. And if you go to that page on the website, and again, you get access to all of this if you sign up for the product at fantasyguru.com, the seasonal product. You can download the CSV, and here we pop it right in. It's got player ID numbers, the whole thing. So it should be very seamless for those of you that want to utilize it over at Underdog itself. In terms of how do you play best ball, what are some early tips? Scott Bonder did a write-up over at fantasyguru.com that's available, and he talks what is best ball, why play it, what are the platforms you can use, what are the starting lineups, how's the scoring different. He highlighted Underdog, Drafters, and DraftKings. So he talks about the formats, scoring comparisons, pitching comparisons, tips for each of those, like what's the best way to target if you're playing on DraftKings or Underdog. So he's got there, so we have an intro piece, we have the rankings there. I think we're going to get, can't hold me to this, but I think Scott's also going to do some rankings for DraftKings and even for maybe who's the other one? Why am I drawing a blank? Underdog. No, Drafters and DraftKings, sorry. He mentioned that right now we've got the Underdog rankings up. The other two sources, I think we're going to have some rankings up too. I'll share that news on the show when we get to it. But just wanted everyone to know, we've got best ball rankings too. That is one of the myriad of rankings that we have available over at fantasyguru.com. Don't overlook that. If you've got any follow-up questions, you can hit us up in the chat room. Always willing to help over at FG. But the rankings are available right now. So check it out over at fantasyguru.com. Okay, let's talk about some of these signings. Pete Alonso finally signed. And this one is really interesting. We talked about him on and on and on here on the show, trying to figure out where he would go, what the contract would look like. And when I saw the signing by Pete Alonso, the word capitulation came to mind. This is, if you're Pete Alonso, this is about as bad an outcome as possible. Honestly. He got a 2-year, $54 million contract. Whoopee frickin' do. One of the legitimate 5 best top-end power hitters in baseball signed a 2-year, $54 million contract. Okay. He has an opt-out following the season. There's also a player option in 2026 for $74 million. And this is what we talked about. I'm sure Alonso went in thinking he's going to get $250 million. Even if he takes all of those, it's not even $80 million for 3 years. So I don't know if he bungled the negotiations. I don't know if he overestimated his worth. I don't know if he asked for too much. I don't know if, the opinion around the league was kind of what we shared on this show, that, I can go out and, give me a Heimer Candelario or Carlos Santana, and they're nowhere near as good as, Pete Alonso. But if I get 70% of the production for a tenth the price, I think that's kind of what happened. But the bottom line for Alonso is that now he goes back to the Mets, and while it's not a great park to hit in, He's obviously familiar with the team. He's familiar with the fans. He, from all reports, loved his time there. Everyone loved him. And more importantly, this lineup is banging with the Mets. If everyone's healthy, you probably have a top three of Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso. So Pete Alonso is going to have the greatest on-base force in the game, and Juan Soto batting ahead of him. Pete Alonso, right? Like, this has to be, I'm making a note. I didn't update the rankings. I got to do that. And I also got to update the rankings. I didn't do that this morning. I'll get to it after the show. Alonso's value goes up because, it's hard to envision a scenario where, if he's healthy, how does he not drive in 100 runs, right? Now, this also has a negative impact, two negative-ish impacts. One of them is really kind of minor. One, Mark Vientos will play third base. It's kind of a negative because he was going to play first and get dual position eligibility, but that's fine because he's a third baseman. The real negative, number two, is that the Mauricio, Beatty, Acuna, that dream is dead. So the only way those guys get involved in a significant way is if someone gets hurt. Someone will get hurt at some point. That'll happen, of course. But there's no path to these guys being in the lineup on a daily basis. None for those guys in particular. Don't forget they signed Jesse Winker. He'll fill the DH role. You got Brandon Nimmo out there. Francisco Alvarez. Jeff McNeil should rebound, but even if he doesn't rebound tremendously, he's hitting 8th or 9th. Jose Siri's got tons of strikeout problems, but he's got power speed. He's hitting 8th or 9th. That's if he can hold off Starling Marte. Like, this is a really good offensive lineup. And you look at the way it could go, and they could give teams fits. Lindor's a switch hitter. Soto's lefty. Alonso's righty. Nimmo's a lefty. Vientos is a righty. Winker's a lefty. Alvarez is a righty. McNeil's a lefty. Siri and Marte are righties. Like, they're going to be a difficult team to pitch to this season. Alonso goes back. Value goes up a little bit, I think, because of, the presence of Juan Soto. But he's basically the exact same guy. We talked about him earlier. Been talking about it for days now. It doesn't run. Not going to give you a good batting average, but he's going to power the baseball. And there is no more consistent first base option in the home run, RBI, and run scored columns than Pete Alonso. Tommy Pham, who we talked about yesterday. 2 days ago. Maybe it was 2 days. It might have been Monday. It was Monday or Tuesday this week. We were talking about Tommy Pham and saying, look, he's on an upper division team. He's a bench guy. If he goes to a lower division team, maybe he's in the starting lineup. Well, he goes to the Pirates, and he probably plays every day now, or at least most days, 3/4 of the days, 4/5 of the days. And there's even a scenario where he bats leadoff for this team. So Tommy Pham goes to the Pirates. If it's Pham, Reynolds, Cruz, that's a really good top three. Now, of course, then we start getting into the Spencer Horwitz and Brian Hayes and Andrew McCutchen. Like, it gets spotty really quickly. But Tommy Pham, hitting first or second for this team, which seems quite doable. As we talked about earlier in this week, still could hit 15 to 20 home runs, and I think he could still 15 to 20 bases. Now, he's almost 37 years old, and he's got health issues that have been around for a long time. And as he ages, of course, that's not going to go away. And he's coming off a season that wasn't great. But there's some power and speed there. Much like the case of Alonso and what it did to guys, down farm, kind of the same thing happens here with Pham. If Pham's in the outfield every day, Brian Reynolds is in the outfield every day. We know that. Center field is probably going to be O'Neill Cruz. Okay, so I don't know how good that outfield is going to be. But Cruz, Pham, and Reynolds in the outfield with Connor Falefa playing shortstop. That leaves Henry Davis in the minors. Does he make the team? The former #1 pick, who is the catcher, who is spending time in the outfield. Does he? I don't even know if he makes the team at this point. Don't forget as well, they signed Adam Frazier, who, as we talked about when they signed Adam Frazier, it's a fine major league signing, and I get why they would bring him in. He can play infield, outfield. He's a veteran. I get it all, but all he does is block youngsters from playing. Anyway. Tommy Pham will update the rankings today. His value will increase because it does look like he's going to play and probably hit the top of the lineup, as I've stated here. Next up, Randal Grichuk. We talked about Randal Grichuk, and I gave the comparison the other day. But, hey, if you could take Peterson and Grichuk and put them together, you'd have an all-star. Well, Grichuk, hey, it's $5 million. You got a $5 million contract for a year. Who's not going to take that, right? Kind of light. I'm surprised someone didn't step up and give him a multi-year deal. because it's, we talked about it the other day. He's had a 900 OPS 3 years running against left-handed pitching. He's basically a borderline MVP level performer against left-handed pitching, has been for years. So if you look at it from that respect, he's a platoon guy. $5 million isn't that bad. But he's not horrible against right-handed pitching. And in a pinch, he can play daily and all that. But he signs a $5 million deal to return to the Diamondbacks where he's comfortable. Arizona is a good place to hit. He's a place he's familiar with. The 33-year-old will kind of just fill the same role he's been filling. And we'll probably see an outfield of Corbin Carroll, Jake McCarthy, and Lourdes Gurriel. Pavin Smith was basically announced as the DH against right-handed pitching, so it makes obvious sense to say that Grichuk will be the DH against left-handed pitching. And then he'll sprinkle in some time in the outfield too. So unfortunately, Grichuk is going to be basically the same guy he was last year. He didn't get to 300 plate appearances, barring something pretty odd. He won't get to 300 plate appearances again this season with the Diamondbacks, which makes him an NL only play only. But at least we should be expecting him to be very solid. And again, the real value in my mind for Grichuk is if you're involved in the betting market or you're playing the DFS game, then we use him to attack those lefties. And remember, if you go to fantasyguru.com, you click that subscribe tab in the top right corner, you can sign up for the seasonal baseball product, the DFS baseball product, the wagering baseball product. You can get all 3 of them. You can get 2 of the 3. Send a note to support@fantasyguru.com. Support@fantasyguru.com if you want to sign up for something that you don't see listed, some combination of things. Support@fantasyguru.com. And again, I don't know if this is still valid or not, but the all-in VIP Platinum package where you get everything we do for every sport, all of it. You might still be able to get a 50% discount. So check that out. Send a note to support@fantasyguru.com to get everything that we do for every sport that we do for a 50% discount. Moving on, Ramon Laureano goes to the Orioles. And, it's funny, Phil Backert, who does our IDP work, for those of you who play football, Phil from his IDP work over at the site. And you might also know him if you just listen to the radio show on SiriusXM, because he's one of the 2 producers there. He was joking the other day. He said, look, all the Orioles have is outfielders. Like, what's going on? And there's a lot of outfielders. There ain't no doubt about that. There are a lot of outfielders on this team, but the bottom line is they brought in Ramon Laureano. Now, Laureano will go to the bench. He is an AL-only option. He's very likely to be platooned, and Phil was mentioning this to me the other day, too. He's kind of the mindset that there's going to be a lot of platooning here, that the Orioles are basically going full platoon. And if you look at their projected lineup, according to Roster Resource, Henderson's a lefty, Rushman's a switch hitter, O'Hearn's a lefty, O'Neill's a righty, Kauser's a lefty, Mountcastle's a righty, Mullins is a lefty, Westburg is a righty, Holliday's a lefty. Yeah, that's just like we were talking about earlier with the Mets. Like, that's lefty, righty, lefty, righty. That's a mess for an opponent's bullpen. But I think the real oddity of this signing is we've heard a couple of things, right? We've heard that Ryan Mountcastle's on the trade market. If they move Mountcastle, who's only 28 years old, if they move Mountcastle, that opens up some playing time for some youngsters. With the roster as it's currently constructed, Laureano is just a guy that should be expected to play against left-handed pitching. The odd thing is they've got Heston Kjerstad, who might be the best hitting prospect besides Jackson Holliday on this team. Coming up through the minors, and when he was drafted, he had a heart issue that slowed him down. He's 26 years old now. But Heston Kjerstad, his bat was believed to be substantial. Like top 10, 15 overall prospects in baseball kind of stuff. And he's, again, taken the time to get here because of some health issues, but he's here now. The signing of Laureano, and again, it's a lefty or righty thing, okay, but it's just like at some point you have to let Kjerstad play, or you might as well trade him, right? And so we'll see what the Orioles do. There's very likely to be a lot of rumors. They could still be movement here. The Laureano thing is just a depth move. It doesn't have any impact in the seasonal space, though it does give them some coverage, for being fair, because Tyler O'Neill is always hurt. So it gives them a righty to cover up for O'Neill if he goes down. Then maybe they do a Kjerstad and Laureano combination, right? So maybe it'll all work out. Kyle Ofrink, my former host at SiriusXM, used to always say these things tend to work out. He usually was right. Next up, we have Harrison Bader going to the Twins. We talked just about him the other day as well. He signed a 1-year deal for $6.25 million. He's got a $2 million incentive that he can earn on top of that. There's a mutual option for the following season for next year. Bader is excellent depth for when Byron Buxton gets hurt, because he can go out there and he can play center field. It's really messy. It's another team that's really messy because the outfield is likely to be, when everyone's healthy, Larnach, Buxton, and Wallner. That would be their outfield. They've already got Austin Martin, who can play infield, outfield. They just signed Bader, who's obviously an outfielder. Willie Castro can play some outfield if they're desperate. But Bader is, at this point, not draftable in a mixed league. He would become an intriguing player I was going to say when and if, and I said with. Woo, ready with. He'll be an intriguing player when Buxton goes down because, as we talked about the other day with Bader, power and speed are his game. 10 to 15 home runs, 20, 25 steals. That's full season work from him. Obviously, the numbers won't get there, barring some significant injuries with the Twins. But a very good signing for the Twins, though a rather boring one from a fantasy perspective. Two couple of guys to talk about before we get on to Jacob deGrom and then talk some football with Tyler Buecher. Alex Bregman. We've heard Alex Bregman is still in the Astros plans. We've heard he isn't in the Astros plans. We've heard he's in the Astros plans. We've heard he isn't in the Astros plans. He was talking to the media and he said things that were in the past tense with Bregman. So it seemed like it was over. Then he told reporters on Tuesday that they're still talking internally about Alex Bregman. I don't know what the hell's going on, but someone needs to sign this guy. Like we just talked about this earlier this week. Pete Alonso and then Bregman were the two guys we talked about. Alonso signed. Now we'll see if Bregman signed. It'll be fascinating to see. Remember, Alonso got 2 years and $54 million. Now he's a different player than Bregman, different positions than Bregman. But Bregman can't have seen that contract and felt good because there are loose similarities, age-wise, corner infield, loose similarities between these two guys. And if he could only get 2 years and $54 million, maybe that 6-year deal that the Astros offered for 160 or whatever the hell it was is not too bad for Alex Bregman. So we'll see. We'll probably get some resolution here quickly, I would think. But again, Scott Boras is his agent, so you never know. Spring training starting here soon. And then finally, Nolan Arenado and the Red Sox apparently are still talking. Arenado, the Cardinals are trading Arenado. It's a fait accompli. It's going to happen. To whom, we don't know, but the Cardinals are going to have to trade him. It seems like they're going to have to eat a lot of contracts, so they're not going to get a great return. The Red Sox have been a rumored destination at previous times. We've also heard Tigers. It could be that, these teams that are theoretically still involved in the Alex Bregman sweepstakes, if they miss out on Bregman, they'll immediately pivot and make a deal for Arenado. We might see that happen rather quickly. But right now, Arenado, who can lay claim to being in the discussion of the greatest all-around third baseman of all time, okay? And I know Mike Schmidt, I'm just saying, his all-around game, offense and defense, he's in that conversation. He's 33 years old, not the player he once was, but 33 years old. We'll see. He's not going to be on the Cardinals. We just don't know where he's going to be in the coming season. We'll talk to Tyler Buecher in a few minutes. But before we get to Tyler Buecher, I ran a poll the other day. And as you said, Joe, Devers cannot lay claim to that. No, he cannot lay claim to being a great all-around third baseman, which is part of the reason why they're said to be involved with guys like Arenado and Bregman. You're right about that. And you're right as well that Bregman to second base, that's what Alex Cora said. That's kind of the thought process that Bregman, if he does sign with the Red Sox, will play second base. We've talked about that and how that would open up Bregman as a multi-position guy. That would be nice. You all got it right. And I'm going to say this because I think a lot of you that watch this show obviously follow me on Twitter, X, @BRayFlowers, and you probably responded to this poll. So let's check it out. I asked the other day, how many starts will Jacob deGrom make this year? There were 4 options. Option 0 to 9 starts, 10 to 15 starts, 16 to 20 starts, or 21 plus starts. Remember, the goal is 30 starts. Most teams in this day and age would take 25 or 28. So none of these numbers are big numbers. If you look at the voting that you all did, 10 to 15 starts for Jacob deGrom was the winner at 43% of the vote. If you add in what people did from the 0 to 9 range, you get about 3/4. So about 3/4 of the people that followed me at @BRayFlowers and who voted on how many starts deGrom would make, about 3/4 of them, of you, said 15 or fewer starts. To me, I don't know the path to saying that doesn't make sense. I agree with you all. Here's some other data points. Jacob deGrom is a year younger than Madison Bumgarner. A year older than Madison Bumgarner. Damn it, I blew it. He's a year older than Madison Bumgarner. Madison Bumgarner, whose arm went kaplooey and whose career is gone. deGrom is a year older than Madison Bumgarner. The last 3 seasons, Jacob deGrom, every one of those 3 years, has failed to throw 65 innings. So he has failed to be a high leverage reliever the last 3 years. The last 5 years, he's failed to throw 95 innings every single season. So 5 years in a row, he has not thrown 100 innings. So again, that's what I'm saying. To have 3/4 of you say 15 or fewer starts, he'll be 37 this year. In the last 5 years, say even 15 starts is a stretch. The last 5 years, as you see there on the screen, a 2.1 ERA, a 0.75 WHIP, dynamic numbers. And that's the thing with deGrom, much like Clayton Kershaw as an example. When these guys are on the field, they're fantastic. But there's the final piece there with deGrom, 53. The last 5 years, Jacob deGrom has averaged 53 innings pitched. Those are great numbers, 2.1 ERA and a 0.75 WHIP. But throwing 53 innings, he's a reliever without saves, right? That's the workload you've got. So it'll be 37 this year, 3 years in a row under 65 innings, 5 years in a row under 95 innings. Why do I bring this up? Because every year I write about Jacob deGrom. Every year I say, don't do it. Every year people do it. And okay. deGrom had elbow surgeries. The belief and hope is that his arm is fixed. Now, remember, it wasn't just his elbow that gave him problems. I've written about this so many times. A couple of years ago, I even listed like the 35 reports. I spent it was like 2 pages of, March 10th, March 14th, March 22nd, April 1st, April 3rd. Like I went through all the dates and all the news reports. It's been the elbow, it's been the neck, it's been the shoulder. It's not one thing. Having Tommy John surgery, elbow surgery, doesn't change the fact that his whole body was breaking down, and it'll be 37 this year. Why do I bring this all up? If you check the rankings out in ADP, check the ADP out over at the NFBC, which is the ADP that I use, the ADP that I reference. It's a great product over there. Tom and Greg run a great ship. People pay a lot of money to play over there. They're serious about it. I think it's a great resource. People don't phone in. There's no computer ADP like, when you go to some of the big box stores and people do a draft and then, it's dinner time and they don't do the last 6 rounds. There's none of that. It's a great resource for ADP. But I am stunned at Jacob deGrom. Despite everything we just talked about, and despite your voting on my poll over on Twitter X at @TheRayFlowers, all of that was ignored. His ADP in the month of February at the NFBC, almost exactly the same as if you look at their ADP from January. Like there's been no change really. Jacob deGrom's ADP is 12th at the pitcher spot and inside the top 50 overall. If you brought it out to like every draft they've done at the NFBC, it's like 11th, I think, at the pitcher spot. So he's dropped 1 spot. What the hell is going on? You got to take a risk at some point in the draft. We all know that. You got to push things at some. You can't just do the normal. You can't just do the basic. You can't just do the boring. It doesn't work. At some point, you've got to take a risk. Why the hell are you taking a risk with your SP1? What are you doing? I would love to hear somebody, and I would give somebody an opportunity if they want to explain this, like why they would go Jacob deGrom at this point of the draft. And if they're going to say something other than the following, I'd be shocked. They're going to say, well, if, and then that's it. Yeah, if he throws 170 innings, yeah. If he throws 140 innings, you're probably okay. He hasn't thrown 140 innings since like 2001. I'm exaggerating slightly for effect. He doesn't do it. We say it all the time on this show. Play the game of what is. Don't play the game of what could be. If you want to take a health risk in the 15th round, go for it. If you want to take a health risk in the 23rd round, I'm thumbs up that. I did it myself last year. I took Max Scherzer in the 24th round, right? I'm a thumbs up. In the 4th round? What are you doing? What? Asinine. If you think I'm wrong, hit me up on Twitter X, hit me up in Discord over fantasyguru.com. If there is some explanation as to why anyone would take Jacob deGrom in the top 50 overall players, besides the if he stays healthy crap, which is just total nonsense. I'd love to hear the explanation, because otherwise I simply don't get it. All right, that's our baseball talk for the day. Let's talk some football. I got to admit, I'm getting kind of tired of talking football. I got to admit it. It's okay. It's okay. We only got a couple more days to the Super Bowl. Looking forward to the Super Bowl. Looking forward to next Monday. Hoping that there's no referee just play a good football game, have it be close. But we still got to talk about football, and it is the Super Bowl. And we got to talk about it with the guy that knows what he's talking about, and we got the guy to do that with you here today. That's because we got Tyler Buecher, who joins us every Thursday. Tyler, how you doing today, bud?
Doing good, Ray. The wearisome and tiredness of the Super Bowl, you are not alone. I will say that as we get a little bit closer, I'm getting a little bit more excited. But the 2-week hiatus has kind of made me just a little, I'm ready for just a 1-week break.
Yeah, and it's, you kind of get out of the groove, and, it's everywhere. Like you turn on sports and they 18 hours a day, and it's like how many times can you talk about one game? And the funny thing I always run into with this is it's kind of like the NFL draft. It's just what it is, over. It runs everything over and over, and the same things are being said over and over again. Like there's not any new takes. Like if you really broke this game down, I bet I could have started talking on Monday. You'd say the same things you're saying today. Like you got it down, right? So we haven't done that much on the show here, so no one has anything to worry about here. But I wanted to address this head on. I appreciate your honesty there too, because I bet a lot of people would have said in yours, "Oh no, is a 2-week thing just the real kicker for you, Tyler? If it was 1 week, do you think it'd be better?"
Yeah, I think people get football fatigue for sure. We've been doing this since late August. I think people are just ready for anything other than football. Like I'm excited for Daytona. Like I'm excited for anything coming up.
By the way, you're obviously, do you have big plans for the game? Are you doing a quiet thing at home, or do you got a party you're going to?
I told you this off screen. I am currently in the middle of a move. So I am going down to where I'm planning on moving on Sunday with the anticipation of Monday visiting some houses to go check out. So things have been changing rapidly behind the scenes over here. Looking to make a move down in the North Carolina area.
If we did this on the Elite Sports Show yesterday, again, that's 3 to 6 Monday through Friday on Sirius XM. What is your favorite? Do you have a favorite Super Bowl food? Like, is there a dip or pizza or beers or something that every year you kind of gravitate toward?
Yeah, buffalo chicken dip. I feel like it's kind of a staple. Can't go wrong with that one. Definitely my favorite, and it's very easy to make. So, that's my answer. How about you?
I seemingly always have nachos. At the same time, I always have nachos. So it's like a Thursday I have nachos. So it's like, but the last couple of years in particular, we used to buy the wings, and my lady said, let's try making them. And so we got one of the little air fryer things, and honestly, pretty damn good, so I kind of look forward to that now, but usually nachos.
Yeah, you can save some money too with wings that way, because they are expensive now when you order them. Yeah. They are no longer like 50-cent wings. That's not a thing.
No, and you got to go wait in line, and they're late, and they get cold, and we had a delivery set up years ago, Wingstop. I got a whole thing with Wingstop, actually. This is hilarious. I use social media power. We ordered them like 3 weeks in advance. We had the pickup time, and they were like 45 minutes late. And it's like my gal missed the start of the game. Like what the hell? We set, like, you could choose a time to pick up, and there were like 50 people in line, and it was all. And I got in this big back and forth with their social media crew, and I said, look, like, I'm not this kind of guy, but people there didn't have an excuse. They just did. It's like I paid $75. I made it in the reservation. So I got a gift certificate to make up for it. We then got wings one more time, and then we started making our own. So there you go, broke even. And now we do our own, so there's none of that, Tyler. I just get mad at her if it's not ready on time. Tyler Buecher, fantasyguru.com. Let's talk some Super Bowl. Conventional wisdom says that the Eagles will want to keep the ball out of the hands of Patrick Mahomes. They're going to want to run 12 to 14 play drives. They're going to want to give it to Saquon Barkley to take it down the field, and then either have Barkley or Jalen Hurts get a tush-push 2-yard touchdown. So it seems like the running game of the Eagles is what everyone expects to occur for them to have success. Do you anticipate the Eagles playing the game that way to have success this weekend?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Eagles were among the league's heaviest run teams. Neutral game scripts, only the Packers ran the ball heavier. But when we look at pass rate over expectation, the Eagles were dead last. They just did not They did not throw the ball that often, and they didn't need to. They had great efficiency, great explosive playability. The run game was firing on all cylinders behind this offensive line. And they now face a Chiefs defense that has kind of fallen off in the back half. From weeks 1 through 8, they were number 3 in EPA per rush. From weeks 9 through 17, when the starters were still in, that dropped down to, I think it was 17th or 18th. So they went from elite to middle of the pack. They went from the second fewest rushing yards per game allowed in the first half of the season to 20th. We saw in the postseason guys like James Cook, guys like Joe Mixon, both of them were able to find success running the ball against this defense. So I'm expecting them to come here executing their typical game plan of running the ball as heavily as they can. And Kansas City is a defense that is known for their blitzing. Yes, we love Steve Spags for that. It's exciting. It's fun. It adds some chaos. But he's also well known for 2 high coverage shells where they have 2 safeties lurking deep. And because of it, the Chiefs have prevented explosive pass plays all season long. They gave up the 5th fewest in the league. But again, over the back half of the year, they were able to be run on. So I'm expecting one of those safeties to trickle down into the box a bit more often, probably Justin Reed, who's usually their in the box safety, in order to get like hat on a hat, Eagles offensive blocker versus KC defender, to try to slow down and limit any kinds of explosive gains. The only issue is it's Saquon Barkley you're facing here. He only needs to make one guy miss, and then that hat on a hat becomes an advantage for the guy that gets defeated. Now Barkley's running with a blocker ahead of him, where we could see that 70-yard jaunt to the end zone. How do the Eagles, let's say the Chiefs do bring down the safety. Let's say they do bring down a guy like Justin Reed and slow things down and force Saquon to go 3 yards per carry. Eventually they're going to have to throw the ball, and we're going to have some single high coverage for Jalen Hurts now. And that's not a bad thing at all, because Jalen Hurts has been phenomenal against single high, specifically because of the play of A.J. Brown, who was arguably the number 1 wide receiver against single high coverage this year. It's either him or Puka Nacua. You can argue amongst yourselves against that. But Brown was among league leaders in targets per route run, yards per route run, all kinds of efficiency metrics that we like to look at and study against single high. And when the Chiefs go single high, they'll also be playing man coverage. Another thing that goes in Brown's favor in terms of coverage scheme and performance against. So I envision Brown, who's been an elite single high coverage beater, and Devonta Smith, who's no slouch against it either. He's played the Chiefs 3 times in his career, 99, 100, and 122 receiving yards for all 3 games for Smith. Don't forget about him, guys. I think both these guys are going to find some success if they decide to limit Saquon Barkley. So that's how I'm expecting the Eagles to approach the game. I'm expecting KC to try to throw some wrinkles in there with the safety down, and then that's the Eagles' counter for it.
Tyler Buecher, fantasyguru.com, breaking this game down for y'all here on the show. What if we go to the other side? If we go to the other side with the Chiefs, it's Kareem Hunt over Pacheco in the backfield, but like this is more, it seems like the Chiefs run the ball just because they should. It's not like that it's really working or helping the offense. They will also run the ball down at the goal line, so, there's something there. But really, you kind of look at Patrick Mahomes and you say they probably have to pass the ball effectively in this game. So talk to us about the passing game with the Chiefs. Obviously, everyone's going to be talking about Kelsey, and they're going to be talking about Xavier Worthy. Are those the 2 guys that you think would benefit? Is there somebody else that pops for you? Are the Eagles, who have a pretty good defense, are they going to be able to stop what the Chiefs are talking about? Talk us through the Chiefs side of things on offense.
So the Eagles want to run the ball. The Chiefs are on the absolute opposite end of the spectrum here. They want to throw the ball. They like to play faster. They're 11th in neutral script, seconds per snap. They are top 5 in neutral pass rate. I mentioned the Eagles being dead last in pass rate over expectation. The Chiefs are number 2 in highest pass rate over expectation. Very different stylistic offenses here. Kansas City will be going against a Vic Fangio defense here in Philadelphia that prefers to play a lot of cover 4 and cover 6, where these are designed to slow down opposing vertical shots. And the Eagles have played with leads for so much of the season, it makes sense. Like, why would they allow? They should be playing prevent defenses for the most part. Philadelphia finished number 1 in fewest rate of explosive pass plays. But that's not the Mahomes of 2024, 2025. We're not seeing the 2021 version with him and Tyreek going for big vertical shots and the home run hitters. Instead, it's like a death by 1,000 paper cuts here, where they're just attacking the underneath stuff. And Fangio, their defense is pretty passive, the Eagles. They will sit back in zone. They're like top 12 in zone coverage rate. They're, again, league leaders in cover 4, cover 6. So Casey will take that underneath stuff all day. The way for Fangio to mix things up is to go from that zone to some man coverage, particularly on like third downs, to mix things up, add some wrinkles. The Eagles invested heavily in the cornerback position, getting guys like Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo, round 1, Cooper DeJean from Iowa, round 2. That's premium capital. And we've seen these guys hit the ground running as starters, been playing phenomenally all season long. Eagles are like bottom 3 in perimeter receptions, receiving yards, all kinds of receiving stats on the outside because of it. They're a little bit more susceptible to the slot. So when we talk about which players for Kansas City will benefit, it's likely the guys attacking the middle of the field. I'm envisioning guys like either Travis Kelce or Xavier Worthy being the big hitters here. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't really take a leap of faith. They're the current target share leaders, they're the current route leaders. But matchup-wise, it also points to it being a good matchup where the Eagles are elite on the perimeter. They're kind of middling in terms of their production over the slot, which makes sense. I mean, when you think about an Eagles team playing with a lead, teams are going to dink and dunk and try to get what they can, and as they try to claw their way back into games. So matchup-wise, stats-wise, that all kind of makes sense to me. I think the matchup for Kelce is particularly notable. He'll be facing Nakobe Dean's backup, Oren Burks, in pass coverage quite a bit. Burks got his lunch eaten from Kelce last Super Bowl when Burks was with the Niners. I think that's the matchup that's really interesting to me. If it's Kelce, that becomes like if he visits the Fountain of Youth before this game, I think he has a chance to put up a big game. Otherwise, it's going to be like Worthy in space. Maybe we see a bunch of bunch patterns, trying to get Worthy in space through some crossers and things like that, letting his east-west speed shine in that capacity. But it's going to be a fun matchup here in terms of like the move, the counter, the move, the defense, and the counter, and see how each one lines up and which one finds success. Overall, I think this is going to be a really fun game. It's just going to be really fast-paced in terms of the clock moving. Both these offenses are very good at long, methodical drives. They don't make a ton of mistakes. Usually it's the opponents that are forced into them. It's going to eat up the clock. It's going to lead to probably a lower scoring matchup, I think. And it's a chance where we see a lot of people. I know everyone loves to bet overs on games, particularly in the Super Bowl. But if we're having these long, methodical drives where the clock is quickly dissipating and there's just not a lot of overall play volume, it could end up being a bunch of unders that come through as the winners. So I hate to rain on people's parade, but I think that's probably the most likely outcome. So we did our staff predictions yesterday or today. I forget when they got posted. But my bet for this game was 24-21 Kansas City.
I had 27-24 Kansas City, and I almost went 21-19. For some reason I had these two numbers, and I think a lot of people see it the way you're describing, right? I mean, that makes sense. Tyler Buecher, fantasyguru.com. And Jeff Mance talked about that on his show too. Like, I think he'd be a fan of the under. What's the under? The over-under is like 49 or something last time I looked, something like that, right? So I'm basically just over it. I was uncomfortable with that number myself. Again, obviously 40 would have been a lot below. So that's kind of where we're at. I think if we return to the Chiefs for a second, Tyler,
sure.
Because if people are playing, one and dones, or they're looking at doing DFS this week, I guess salaries are in play, of course. But the real question is, okay, you got Worthy, and you got Kelce. Who else do you see with the Chiefs? Because it makes sense that DeAndre Hopkins in the Super Bowl, sure. We have, Marquise Brown, who flashed in the regular season and been kind of uneven in the playoffs. You got Juju Smith-Schuster, who out of the slot could do some things. Justin Watson always is a threat to pop a long one, though, as you noted, that's not exactly something that the Eagles are planning on allowing to happen. Is there a name amongst the receiving corps beyond Worthy that you'd be focused on this week?
Yeah, Hollywood makes the most sense in terms of both target share, routes run. But behind him, I'd probably play Juju over Hopkins, who saw more routes, more opportunities. Hopkins has just not been running a lot of routes these last two postseason games for Kansas City. But maybe that switches things up with it being the Super Bowl and all the hurrah around it. He's finally getting to his first one ever in his career. But no, I think I'd rather play Juju and probably get some savings. I imagine he's cheaper on DFS showdown slates. I imagine he's also more contrarian if you're trying to play a one and done or in some kind of tournament or league setting where people will probably go for the name cachet of guys like Hollywood or Hopkins before Juju. But Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I did not make it an official play, but I'm very close to pushing one out on the over on his receiving yards, where, again, the middle of the field is where you want to attack, and Juju's been a slot heavy receiver for this Chiefs team.
Tyler, I've got a question here in the chat, and it's a DFS showdown. I don't play DFS showdowns. I don't want to have Justin Watson be the guy that I count on, or do something crazy like I hope Sky Moore plays. So the question is a straightforward one though. For your captain here, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Patrick Mahomes, possibly AJ Brown. I think those are the names everyone's going to be circling, right? Maybe Travis Kelce, maybe. But is it a quarterback play here for you? You're talking about the captain, or would you consider Barkley?
Well, I think this should come down to the size of the contest you're playing. Are you playing like the Millie Maker one where you're just shot in the dark? Right. Then I'd get weird. I'd go with an AJ Brown or a Devonta Smith one.
Okay.
If you're playing in, let's say, the Spy, which is a $100 entry, and usually it's about 1,000 people in the contest, that's a bit smaller of a field. I'd probably play the best play, the optimal play. In my eyes, I think I'd go to Jalen Hurts here, where he has the chance of scoring 2 touchdowns. We get the passing scoring as well, the rushing, the passing yardage. He would be my selection as the captain lean in the smaller field stuff. The larger field, I'm getting weird. I don't want to play what everyone else is playing. I want to be a bit more contrarian. I'm going with one of the Eagles wideouts here where, again, I think Saquon Barkley gets a lot of the attention, rightfully so. He's coming off a 2,000-yard season. He should be notably involved heavily all season long, but I like the wideouts as a way to get a little bit different.
Speaking of the Super Bowl, and I know you're heavily involved in the betting guide over at fantasyguru.com. People can get that. Go to fantasyguru.com. The tab is right there. Subscribe, top right corner. The Super Bowl betting guide is right next to it. You're heavily involved there. You've already mentioned some things here on the show. All this week you'll hear, because again, people are filling time. All this week you'll hear discussion about this has happened, 8 out of 10 times in the Super Bowl, or the overs this time, or the unders this time, or home team, away team, traveling team, best record. There's all this history of the Super Bowl. How much of an impact does that have you if you're talking about doing things other than like betting on player props? Like, do you factor that in? Is it one-offs? Like, does it matter to you that the team that comes in with the bye week, does that stuff matter to you? It's history. We love to look at it, but does it really impact how you make decisions this week?
No, I agree with you. I think they're more just talking points than anything in terms of actionable betting trends. There are betting trends that do exist. I just think we need to be very selective when we use them, and the process that we use to choose which ones people will not necessarily go the right path. I'll just say that. The things that you're describing there, like let's say the coin flip was heads 3 of the last 5 years. I don't know what it was. I'm just making that up. People want to go heads because it's hit 60% of the time over the last in that period. No, I think that's just silly. A lot of these trends I think are for like the novelty props and things like that. They're novelty for a reason, guys. There's a reason why these are only offered for this specific game and not every single week of the year. If you are playing some novelty props, I would say play a lighter unit in terms of, like, let's say your typical unit's $100. Mm-hmm. Maybe go 20, 25 on some of these plays, because some of them are just for fun. Some of them are things we aren't really able to accurately predict. And I'm in the business of using my money to make more money. I'm not here just to have fun on a random Sunday while eating wings and buffalo dip.
Like people bet on the coin toss, or the color of the Gatorade, or the length of the Star Spangled Banner, like that kind of, like, what are you doing? Like, if you've got that, in my mind, if I've got money to spend on that, I'll go get some caviar. I'll do something, I'll do something else. Like, I'll do something with the money. It's like, if you're rich and who cares, fine. But I don't know why people, Whitney Houston did this, or who cares? What does that have to do with anything? So I don't know. I know I've seen the betting guides from the sports book. Sometimes they're like 20 pages. Like, it's insanity what they have in there. By the way, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's all digital now, but you got to scroll throughout every single menu now, and there are a ton of things you can bet on. One of the things that markets that I've been interested in this year, which does have some trends and things backing, are like 3rd down conversions and 4th down conversions, which are more of the matchup analysis rather than Gatorade color. But yeah, the book of props is just unbelievable this year. Again, I would always advise getting access to as many books as possible so you can always get the best odds. Like we can look at any touchdown market for one player. It could be plus 150 on this book.
Mhm.
Every other book has them at plus 120. So getting access to that one with the plus 150 is worth the exposure, even if you're spreading your money around from account to account.
You already predicted the game earlier, Tyler. Did you have an exact bet you wanted to share? You were kind of hinting at some things, and did you slide that in and I missed it too? I didn't miss that one, right?
No, I did not slide this one in.
Okay.
Well, I hinted at it. I'll say it's Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. So the reason why I liked the captain selection of Hurts is for this play specifically. Hurts has been a red zone and specifically a touchdown machine all season long. He's really taken advantage of this tush push, the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it, notably leaning on it when it counts the most. He's reached the paint in 10 of his last 12 games, 15 total touchdowns during that span, if we look at just the full games. And he'll be getting back his interior offensive lineman, Cam Jurgens. Again, I mentioned the Chiefs' downfall in their run defense as of late. And this kind of prop to me, the Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown, isn't really game script sensitive. They could be leading and they find themselves at the 1 yard line and they're pushing them in. They could be trailing and they're at the 1 yard line and they're pushing him in for the score. He could also take off randomly for a 20 plus yard score or a 40 plus one like he did against the Rams a few weeks back. There's a lot of outs to this one hitting. I've seen many sports bettors going for the Jalen Hurts 2+ touchdowns. I'm not that greedy. Give me the anytime, the single touchdown. You can get this at like minus 115 most books. Minus 105 was the best odds that I found prior to placing this one. That's over at MGM.
Tyler Buecher, fantasyguru.com. Before that, you go, Tyler, some broad picture questions at the wide receiver position. Some names in the news here I wanted to ask you about after that we broke down the Super Bowl there. And again, for more of the Super Bowl talk, go to fantasyguru.com. Articles over there. Super Bowl betting guide, Tyler's in Discord, all that kind of stuff. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Send a note to support@fantasyguru.com if you're not signed up yet. You want to do something to get all of Tyler's great work. Cooper Kupp, basically the Rams, I guess, told Cooper, you're out, kid. And I say kid because I'm twice his age. But Cooper Kupp, is he intriguing? Is he, if you're in like a keeper league or something, is he a guy you're going out and getting now? Because who knows where he ends up. But he could end up in a spot where he's catching 5 passes a game next year, couldn't he?
Possibly. I think what we really want to do is try to find out if there was any kind of injury this season that he played through.
Right.
And I'm kind of holding my cards to the chest right now, just waiting for that information because I think he played injured for the majority of the season.
Right.
And he did lose some time due to injury, but when he came back, he was just kind of ineffective. Very clear passing of the torch over to Nakua. Who looks like a star. I mean, the first year, absolutely offensive rookie of the year candidate. Year 2, he followed it up with a tremendous yards per out run season. I mentioned the single high coverage of A.J. Brown. It was only Nakua who had a better yards per out run on the outside against single high than A.J. Brown. I think they're confident in Nakua. Curious to see what they do with Stafford. That's the big question mark for me this offseason. But Kupp, I'm not buying. I'm waiting. If anything, I'm selling. I just think the end is near. The cliff for some players comes pretty precipitously. And unfortunately, I mean, do me a favor, open a tab and look up Cooper Kupp's stats. And it's been 4 years since his triple crown that he's had. The last 3 years, he's just been unable to replicate anything close to it. I just feel like the end is near for Kupp, unfortunately.
We're hearing a lot of reports about T. Higgins wanting to get paid. And there's reports floating out there, $30 million. Like he's going to get paid. And I guess there's a small sliver of hope that he could return to the Bengals. Joe Burrow came out and said, look, I can restructure my contract here. I don't know if he restructures his contract, if that could work out anyway. I mean, that if dude wants to get $30 million, things start getting pretty tight here quickly, especially because Jamar Chase is going to get $40 million, right? What are we doing with T. Higgins? Just same thing, wait and see approach with him. I mean, are you hoping he stays with the Bengals? Would you love to see him go somewhere else? I mean, it seems like if he goes somewhere else, he gets the Chase treatment. He gets the 140 targets. And it's just hard to envision that happening with full health in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'm buying. I do think we've seen enough from him over the duration of his career so far, where we can confidently say he's a strong wide receiver. Wide receiver 2 probably is his best fill in terms of like a team's target pecking order. But I can't lie and say like I don't think there's a path where he goes to a new team and becomes the clear wide receiver 1 and does push for 140 plus targets, 150 plus. He's been really phenomenal when healthy. That's just been a big caveat there to throw in that sentence. But I like him. I like him quite a bit, and I'd be willing to buy right now where there's some ambiguity in terms of his landing spot, because let's say he goes to a team that's on the rise. I don't know. You could throw out whatever example you want. But a target hike in terms of expectation is going to lead to a price hike as well. Right now, with him potentially going back to Cincinnati, I think there's a chance where people are still envisioning Chase as the target alpha for sure. And for that reason, we could probably get a relative quote unquote discount compared to what could be if he goes to elsewhere where he's the undisputed wide receiver one. So it's a fun conversation to have. He, unlike Kupp though, he would be a player I'd be interested in buying.
Final wide receiver before we let you run here, Tyler, let you get back to doing more analysis of the Super Bowl. Courtland Sutton, there's a report in the Athletic saying he ain't playing his last year of his contract. Now, it didn't have quotes or anything like that. It was more of a supposition that Courtland Sutton wants to get paid. He wanted to get paid last season. You know, he's hitting his 30 years old here pretty soon. So, you know, this is his kind of last big chance. He clearly is the alpha with Denver. They're trending in the right direction with Bo Nix and everything like that. There's no way to know how this is going to work out, but Sutton does not have a background that says George Pickens here. So you have to think it'll get worked out. Then we had Sean Payton say, well, you know, yeah, he kind of didn't say yes or no to Sutton, kind of said, we got some good guy. Nothing to see here. It's just something that people have to talk about. And who cares? You know, Courtland Sutton will be back with the bank, you know, Broncos next year, you know, catching 5 passes every week.
Yeah, I don't think this is a newsworthy item. I think that Sutton will return. He's been great for the Broncos, great touchdown guy. We saw some great rapport with him with Bo Nix over the second half of the season specifically, where I saw some growth there. And they don't have a weapon like him. Like, he's not like a duplicate. Like, they got rid of Tim Patrick. I think Sutton's really the big-bodied wideout that they want to use as that chain mover. They've got the vertical guys. I just think he rounds out the wide receiver room really well. So add the leadership element, add the veteran element, add the fact that he's still working with a young QB who's still growing. I like the idea of Sutton remaining in Denver, and they should get him a contract. He's been underpaid relatively these last few years. He's not going to warrant T. Higgins money, but I do think he warrants top 25, top 30.
Tyler Buecher of FantasyGuru.com. He joins us every Thursday at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time to talk some football with us, as he did again today. If you missed any of it, obviously you can rewind this, review it, rewatch it, get his great analysis. Head over to FantasyGuru.com. You can read his work over there. You can apply his brain some more in the chat room if you want. He'll be in there as well. Tyler, hope things go well on the weekend with the pre-move. I know it's not, you know, you described what you're going through here. It's always a big deal to move. So hopefully you find a great place and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully you find a way to get some dip for the game. And we'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Thank you. And I just want to address Joe's comment here. The game script article for the Super Bowl will be dropping tomorrow on Friday.
Okay. And that'll be a whiz banger, as I'm assuming they all have been. You're despite my making fun of the Super Bowl era, you put a tremendous amount of analysis into this article, I'm assuming, Tyler.
Yeah, and I have 2 weeks to do it. It's just overfill. There's just too much information there. I've had it done for a few days now, but we're just abiding by the schedule. It'll be on schedule.
Yeah, I got that. You know, people love schedules. I don't like schedules. Other people love schedules. I get it. Yeah. I like to have the freedom to do some random things, but in football, we do what we do. So glad that'll be out here, and you can find that over at fantasyguru.com. So Tyler, thanks for your help today. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks. Good luck, everyone. Have a great Super Bowl, and let's make some money.
Let's do it. He's Tyler Buecher. He's with us every Thursday at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow on Friday's show, Russell Clay will join us at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. We'll continue to talk some football with him, and we'll of course talk baseball the first half of the show, as we are wont to do here on Fantasy Sports Daily. For Tyler, I am Ray. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com. We'll see you tomorrow.